Alrighty, we are getting started here recording wise. Good morning, everybody. Well, it's morning here. Who knows when the heck you're listening to this? But to start things off, welcome to the In Summary podcast. I think we'll be referring to it often, either as that or I think we're probably looking at changing the name to UMR, which is the ACUHO. So many acronyms. I was like trying to explain an acronym, but Residence Life's Upper Midwest Regions Residence Life podcast. So if you stumbled into this somehow, this is going to be a podcast about what it's like to live and work in higher ed institutions, specifically probably on the housing end of things. Though I'm sure as we talk, we will meander around higher ed and student affairs in general. But that is kind of what we're looking at today. But some introductions, which I've been looking forward to start out, is this podcast has existed before, but the people doing it today are new to doing it. So my name is Jake Osman. Jacob Osman works too. That's what's on screen today. I couldn't get Teams to make me less formal, so it's Jacob Osman today. My pronouns are he, him. I work in the University of Wisconsin Stout right now. I'm one of our residence life coordinators, so I supervise 3 of our residence halls here on campus. I've worked in housing now. This is my 5th professional year. And prior to that, I did my grad work at Kansas State. Go Cats, baby. And I went to college because I didn't want to farm. And here we are. As I believe deep down we all do, you know? Everyone has that choice, I'm sure.
Love that.
So I came here, didn't want to work with the cows, and now I'm helping students figure it out. So that's a little bit about me. I will pass it around. Jasmine, why don't you introduce yourself next?
Okay, hello. My name is Jasmine Riddler. My pronouns are she, they, and I currently serve as a residence life coordinator at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I've been here for a year and some change. I started August 2024. I don't know why I checked my watch like that would tell me. But I started in August 2024. I'm a complete transplant in Wisconsin. I'm originally from Ohio, but my partner got a job out here, and there ergo, so did I. I had sort of an interesting resume. So I was a theater major and history major in undergrad, and I got my business degree, my MBA at the same school that I went to. I went to Heidelberg University for both undergrad and grad. And I originally had done that to sort of be my own agent as an actor. And then somewhere along the way, I was like, I don't really want to be an actor anymore. It was 2020, the world was falling apart. It's neither here nor there. So initially, I wanted to get into corporate diversity, equity, inclusion. And then the Ohio government said no more of that. And so I went into what I thought was going to be a little bit safer, which was Title IX. So I had done residence life as a graduate student and an undergrad, and then I jumped into Title IX right after grad school. I worked there for about a year. It was a really great experience. It was very much like the barracks of higher ed, I would say. I used to say, I think everyone should serve a year in Title IX, but you can't do that unless you're passionate. It is a wild place. But I learned so much about just everything, just the processes and the policies and the politics of university. And unfortunately, I don't have a psychology background, so it was very hard to work in that space. And so whenever my partner got the job out here, I ran back to residence life pretty much, and that's where we are now. But I wouldn't have traded that for the world. And I think I have had very valuable experiences in both.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jasmine. I have,
Mhm.
we could do a whole episode where I just ask people about their backstories because I have 10 follow-up questions. But I so agree with the Title IX piece. I did my practicum work in Title IX and then accommodations. And that description of my parents say the same thing of everyone should be a waiter sometime in their life. So they learn
Yeah,
how to treat people. And I feel like Title IX office is similar of it's that experience type.
yeah, and I've worked in the food service industry in high school and Title IX, so I would say I'm pretty well rounded as an individual.
You're covered, dude. That's
I'm
awesome.
covered. Yeah.
Yeah. Austin, you can go next, dude.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, as Jacob said, it's morning here in Minnesota. My name is Austin Carinta. I use he, him pronouns. I am a residence director at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. Also a former waiter, no Title IX experience, but I do have other experience. I'm in my third professional year. First in this current role. I started my college journey at the University of Northern Iowa, where at undergrad, I went to orientation thinking I'm going to be an English teacher. Whole time I had like thoughts about just the general, can I like be in a classroom every day for the rest of my life? Can I lesson plan? Can I be instructing every single day? As soon as I saw a bunch of orientation students dancing up on stage, like getting excited about being at a college, I said, nope, I want to do that. So to my academic advisor's dismay, as we're registering for classes that next morning, I say, I don't want to do that. I want to do what you do. Teach me how. So went undecided, became an RA, everything like that. The undergrad experience. Went to the CEHO region for my master's program at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, before I moved back to the Midwest in 2023 to start my previous role. And I've been in my current for about 5 months now and loving it. First time working at like the big flagship institution and just really loving my experience so far. So happy to be on with y'all and excited to kind of get to dish and see what we've got to talk about over over our time on this podcast together. So happy to be here.
I also think Morning in Minnesota would have been a good name for the podcast if we
Morning,
had wanted to go
Minnesota.
really regional specific. I was like, that rolls off the tongue. That's good. I also think all of us have worked in food industry, which is a
Yeah.
fun discovery. I was a waiter for one night. I was a dishwasher for several years, and I always begged to be a waiter. I cooked and I dishwashed, and it was a very small place. And this doesn't translate over podcast, but I'm a very large human. So they were like, I don't know if it's gonna work out. And I was like, give me a chance. One night waiter dumped a load of barbecue ribs on a dude immediately. One order, one rib plate, gone, done. So I didn't. No redemption story. I just went back
So,
into dishes. But yeah.
so was that like, did you just like start that like that was the beginning of the night and then it was like no, no more. You're dishing.
I had been working for 3 years at that place at that point. An hour into the night, a group came in that I knew, and the owner was like, this is your chance. I'm letting you try to be a waiter. I brought out one plate of food to a table of 20. It was an
Oh my
order of barbecue
goodness.
ribs, and I spilled it on a guy I've known since I was a child. And by the time I got back to the kitchen, my apron was waiting for me. So I I did not. Yeah, it was one and done. They were like, well, there was your shot.
Oh
A-
man.
And it was probably the earliest example of me being like, maybe I have anxiety because it was like I did not handle that challenge well. So that's our first tangent for today. But I want to thank everyone for joining us. Like Austin and Jasmine both said, at some point today, we may have, or certainly in shows in the future, we will have a fourth guest join us who I will let introduce themselves when they're able to. But in the meantime, a kind of structure for the show, I think we're always going to be trying to talk about things happening in higher ed and housing specifically around the region, but maybe in the country, depending on what's going on. I think it's important to start the whole point of the show is we're not experts on things. I think we're figuring things out. I hope things are relatable for folks, but we don't come into this with any sort of our opinion is the expertise, besides our own expertise and perspectives on things. So I say that because we're going to start by going into national and regional topics of importance. And so these are just our opinions on it. And if you would like to get involved and engaged, we encourage you to go to UMR social pages, get involved there, comment on the video as you are watching it, and engaging with it however. But we will start with stories from the region. We also produce a magazine called Perspectives that I think most people who probably find this will be somewhat familiar with. But if you're not, just publications, almost the hard copy version of this. And we've got one article from there today and one article from the Chronicle of Higher Education. I think to start with the article that is from Perspectives, to kind of to jump there and go through things. I did a search of like what topics are happening right now, and everything was AI. I feel like AI came up in almost every intersection. It was interesting. Like one scroll down on most of the journals I was on, you could find a pro or con AI article. And so the fact that it is already, communicating itself in that way is interesting to me. So we have an article today, produced by the fourth person of this podcast, Daniel, who, like I said, might join us today at some point. But the article itself is entitled, I have it right here. I just want to make sure I get the name right. AI chatbots, their features and their risks. Uh, my first question to Jasmine and Austin, so I can get out of the way a little bit, is people can read the article themselves, so we don't have to necessarily do a summary. But what are kind of your thoughts on this idea of that's introduced in the article of AI being something we must interact with? I guess is the starting point of like, do you feel like this is a necessity for people to understand, or is it something we should still be thinking about of like whether or not we should even have to interact with it?
Uh, this is something that we actually talk about a lot at UW-Madison. We take time out of our pro staff meetings, not every week, but about 2 weeks ago, we had a like sit down, like we broke into small groups, we sat down and we had conversations about it. And before we did that, the department actually gave us sent out a survey to see how we felt about it. And one thing that was said that really resonated with me was, you know, a lot of people are talking about AI like it's something that can be prevented, but it's already here. And it's, how are we going to adapt and work with it? And I think for me, I'm older Gen Z. I'm turning 27 next week. And so for me, I kind of always remember the internet, and I always remember, you know, I was, cognizant when the iPhone came around, but it was still like to me, it felt like a natural progression of technology because the internet already existed. And someone that was in my age demographic had also said, I wonder if this is how my parents felt when they saw the encyclopedia graduate to the internet. And I was like, maybe, because I mean, I catch myself, feeling like, oh man, like how to high school, like when I was in high school and I wrote an essay, like I didn't have ChatGPT or a large language model or anything like that. So yeah, we're just kind of always having these conversations about it, and there's a lot of split opinions on it.
Yeah. I think I'm going to pause right there. It's great timing because I totally agree. Also, I love the encyclopedia point because we talk all the time of like, is this just a calculator? Like, is this us in our math class being like, it's our graphing calculators that we didn't understand, and now it's here and it's everywhere. But Dan is joined, so I'm going to admit Dan here to join. Dan, hello. We are talking and recording, but perfect timing. We literally have just started talking about your article, but as you get set up and everything, um, take a moment to set up, and whenever you're ready, Dan, feel free to just do your introduction for yourself to just kind of get things rolling today.
Okay, this is Mike coming through.
Yes, sounds great.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Chow. I'm over at Cornell College. I'm Assistant Director of Residence Life and Dean of, Assistant Dean of Students
Yeah.
and Director of Residence Life here at Cornell College. I've been here since 2016, I think, in this role.
That's awesome. Where were you before Cornell, Dan?
I was at Ferris State University in Michigan. It's near
Okay.
Central College on the west side of the state.
Okay, that's awesome. Like I said, we're just starting through your article on AI chatbots and different things. My opening question, and kind of interesting since you're the one who kind of wrote it here and gave a really good like context on the history of it too, of like, do you feel like AI is something where the conversation of should this exist is still a meritable one, or do you feel like we're past that at this point and it's figuring out how to deal with it?
I'm a constant scroller of Reddit, the social website,
Okay.
which in some ways is the lowest of humanity and the peaks of humanity, depending on, what morning you log on. The thing I like about Reddit versus the other social medias is it's sort of unfiltered. And I think it's part of its anonymous nature that people just feel willing to say whatever they want. But I'm constantly reminded at some of the groups that I'm in that you really only hear the loudest voices on Reddit. They're the ones who want to sit down and actually write a piece about how they feel. So in some of the circles that I'm in, people are quite still hyped and just kind of waiting for this growing pain, growth period to end. What will AI actually be when all the dust has settled? Sort of like electric cars. We had the Prius back in the late or
Mhm.
early 2000s, and it was, a good hybrid, but it just doesn't compare to any of the really nice hybrids and then electrical vehicles, which couldn't kick off at the time that we have today. It's an established technology now. And some people liken the chat bots, our learning language models, to be like an early version of that kind of technology. It's finally commercial. People are trying it out. That's great, but it's not really doing probably what we'll recognize in 10 to 15 years, this type of tech. Others think that we have already plateaued and that the learning language model, that type of technology where you feed it a bunch of knowledge and then it spits out something that it thinks is correct, that has plateaued. And so whatever comes next after that just will not be this tech. It may be something else based on some other idea for a robot to talk back to us, but it's probably already done and we are overhyping it. Maybe you heard of the AI bubble. That's probably what they're referring to, that it will not continue to grow. It went so fast. And then you have, as you mentioned, the people who say, whatever it happens, it's a bane on humanity. We got to get rid of it as fast as possible. And where is the value? Where is it? We'll all realize very soon that this is the negative value that we want. And you hear those perspectives online, and sometimes people come in and say, here, I agree with that. But it's usually just those three sides fighting at each other. But you don't see a lot of the nuance. So in my perspective, I think because I'm in a class through the Associated Colleges of the Midwest, is that independent colleges uh, in the Midwest, they have an AI class that a number of administrators have signed up for. And that has given me a lot of insight, I think, into that discourse and maybe where the facts might be coming from and then what we inflate. So I think the learning language model to become faster and smarter if you get more computer processing power. We may be at some type of limit. And it's not that you can't build a bigger server, but there is a law of computer and robotics about chips that you make
Yeah.
where they are supposed to get so much smaller every couple of years and then multiply their computing power by some type of curve. And that plateaued, I think, in the mid 2010s, far beyond the scientists who made that in like the 80s or 90s. We made the little transistors as small as finally as they can, and you're getting diminishing returns because we hadn't reinvented the technology. We kind of squeezed it all out. I think we're there with the learning language model right now because they keep trying to build the bigger server farms. Everybody's talking about data
Yeah.
centers right now. And I think their original thought was that if we just build a bigger data center that can hold more information and run faster, it'll be great. But I think we're kind of at the peak of that. Something just came out, I think it was either this Monday or Friday. Google released some new code, some new architecture. It's not anything about the hardware, the technology. They didn't invent a new chip. They didn't invent a new computer. They just said, if you write your learning language model, your Gemini, your Siri, kind of all that in a different way, you can use the exact same hardware you have now and really multiply how fast it works and how hard it works. And people were blown away. And so they're incorporating into their code Gemini. Nobody else yet
Yeah.
has figured it out. So Gemini is moving ahead on out, ChatGPT, Claude, and the others because of this thing that they're trying to roll out. And I think that's where we're going to see the advancements in the next year for learning language models, that this new thing called a local large language model, or like the LLM, where you can run one at home or on your phone and it's not connected to a cloud service. That came out in last fall. The first ones rolled out. And I think that's where we're going, where you won't need to pay a subscription or buy a certain phone to have
Yeah.
access to their chatbot. Instead, you're going to have one on some box you're going to buy at home, it's going to be the Siri box or a Gemini box, and it won't need to be connected to the internet. They would like that you connect it to the internet so you can pay a subscription for premium services like getting live news and all that, but it won't have to be. Some, they'll compete, and I think some company, if not one of the big ones, will say, here's the local one so you don't have to pay a subscription. And then they'll fight over, the popularity of that marketing. But they exist now. We have one at the college. We're trying to build one right now that is inside of our network. So we don't need it to access the internet. And so kind of like, imagine I go to my website, I'm an interested student, and the little chat box appears. Those websites, I see you have something in your cart, blah, 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 right? That's kind of the old model. It knows 20 answers, and you kind of have to have the specific answer and then spits it out about how to, add something to your cart or contact customer service. Something like that, but it has the knowledge and the ability to answer questions like a learning language model. So I think that's what's coming. We're going to be able to put stuff on our own networks, not have to have the big company do it. And we can run it on our existing hardware because the data and the code is more simple. So in some ways, to answer your question, some of that is probably overhyped and dead and not helping, but there's some new stuff coming that may be almost indistinguishable to people who don't notice it, but it will be very different on the bottom end of where the code's coming from.
Well, and I think it's interesting. That whole thing was interesting. I love it, Dan, because it makes me think of so many implications. The two that kind of stick out, and I'll toss it to Austin here because you're working at a big flagship school, like you mentioned too, is the two things I heard is like, I think for higher ed, that question of institutional use and the big use, like you're saying, of like, you talk a lot in your article about FERPA, right? That idea of so much we have to do is student confidentiality based. And also kind of what you're talking about is I do wonder that bubble institutional versus individual use. My question for you, Austin, is you like work with your students is, do you feel like your students are almost forcing the issue of AI? Like, do you feel like they're interacting with it a lot? And it's like, if we want to keep up, we kind of have to keep up with our students too? Or do you feel like we're talking about it more than maybe you see your students interacting with it?
That's a good question. I think there's no blanket statement to respond to that. I think there are folks who are very pro, like, I want to use AI for everything. Like I will use it to write my papers and then just make minimal edits, if any, to submit to my professors. I had one of my students that I supervised sent me just an AI generated email to send out that they wanted to go out to the community to promote a program that we were doing. I think it's just a bigger social issue. I think that Dan, you mentioned this, like there are definitely people who are just 100% down with AI, bane of human existence. And the other polar opposite side of that is this is my everyday life. I use it for everything. I think that our responsibility as housing professionals and just educators, people in general, are to be having these conversations about benefits and drawbacks. I think that a lot more people are starting to understand now that there is a significant environmental impact from AI. I think that's really been a lot of the media that I interact with has been promoting that. And I think that's a completely separate but the same issue as what are the benefits and drawbacks of AI. If you look at it truly as, is this a tool that can help us? Then that's great. But I don't think that we're at the point yet of understanding AI well enough at our level, at the student level. I think that I have a couple of friends who work in tech, work specifically with AI, and the regulation of AI is important. And I think that right now it's just so much information. We live in the information age and have largely unregulated things. So I think that it's really a broad spectrum of, the people that I interact with on a day-to-day of, are you going to be using these chatbots, other AI generated content for your everyday life? Are you completely anti it? The big question, do you understand it? Do you understand either side of which you're on, either your own side or the other side of your argument as well? So to kind of twist that question a little bit, I think it's a little more nuanced than that. I think that people have different understandings of it and more conversations need to be had. I think that I've heard a lot of institutions are starting to roll out ideas or like early planning for AI classes of if you're going to be a student here, you might end up using AI. Here's how you're going to be interacting with it. Here are the benefits, drawbacks, things it can and can't do, history of it. You need to understand this if you're going to be using it. And I do think that that's a solid plan moving forward. Yeah, I think there is a lack of understanding, and I think we need to be having these conversations if we're going to continue forward with AI in general.
Yeah, I heard a speaker at a conference I was recently at talking to higher ed professionals about that idea of someone will decide what we do with AI and it will be the most informed people. So if only AI's biggest advocates, or even more so, only the people who can make money off AI are the ones who understand it fully, then that's not as robust a conversation as everyone being more knowledgeable of it so that we can have more complex conversations, I guess. I really like that a lot. Not to move us on too quick, but I do kind of want to throw out, are there any other pieces of AI that we haven't talked about, just open-ended, that anyone's still thinking about when it relates to our work? And we'll just kind of go from there. But any other like talking points that we haven't got to that you all were thinking about coming in today?
I personally feel like I kind of agree. Well, I agree with both Daniel and Austin. With Austin, I think definitely there needs to be some regulations, and we talk all the time about how our incoming students and even our current students are using AI for like emotional support, and that there is a real I guess the best way to describe it is like it's a parasocial relationship between students and these large language, models, and it is a concerning thing that I think we definitely need regulation for. But with Daniel, I am hopeful that this has plateaued because I feel like, and I thought of this when I was reading his article, just saying how, chatbots have kind of, what did you say, existed since the 1960s or been in creation. Yeah. So, I mean, and it felt like there are so many things that are in our daily life now that felt like, you know, engineers or inventors or whoever is the brains behind these things were just really inspired by watching the Jetsons growing up or something like that, where it was like they just aspired to live in a futuristic world, so they made it happen. So like electric cars, I think we only have electric cars because we can't have flying cars yet. But at the same time, when we look at things like I have an Alexa in my home, I'm sure it's listening to me and selling my data to the government. It's fine. But it's not the most accurate thing in the world either. Like it still thinks I live in Ohio, even though I've told it a million times I don't. I remember whenever the Roomba hit the scene and it was like, oh my God, a robot can vacuum your house. And it's like, yeah, but it sucks. Like my grandma has a Roomba and she complains about it. And we thought we were gonna have robot assistants and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes I go to restaurants and they have little robot waiters, and all they're really good for is bringing you water. It's like
Yeah.
we envisioned a future where robots were going to be, this big, part of society, and thus far they're bad at vacuuming and they deliver water sometimes. That's about it. And I'm kind of hoping that AI will be the same of sort of what Danny was saying, like we can't know how it's going to look like in 15 years. And in 10 to 15 years, it could be a complete laughing stock at the same time. We might see articles that'll say something like, 10 years ago, you thought AI would change the world. Here's what it's up to now. So I'm definitely interested to see how it's going because it feels like AI to me feels like the brains behind it just wanted to make the futuristic kind of future that they were expecting to have, like everything is chrome and everything is, you have AI in your brains. And I like it's almost like they're trying to have a Black Mirror episode, but like they've never seen the end of a Black Mirror episode. So I don't know, it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that we've seen the plateau and that we can start to have some of these regulations. One, not only for, the emotional reasons, but of course the environmental reasons, because you see so much on that of, and I have seen some, differing things about how much water AI really uses, but I've seen a lot of things that say it's about a gallon per entry per like, so if you type something in the chat GPT, like write me this, and or like clean up this email, and you forget to paste the email, just doing a double submission into that's already 2 gallons of water. So yeah, I think there's a lot of, I don't want to say nuances. I think there's a lot of pros and cons. But I am definitely interested to see what the future of it is, because there is a good chance that, I mean, I feel like there are so many things that have been invented in my life that were supposed to change the world, and like maybe they did, but like a lot of them also didn't.
Jasmine, that like one, I just want to say like so like so very insightful, and I love that. I love the Jetsons reference too. Like, I think that so many folks have like just been inspired by that and like said like, okay, how can we do this? So I really appreciate that. And then I did want to bring maybe some like make this a little bit lighthearted, but I do want to say that yes, Roombas do indeed suck, but
Yes, yes.
they're a vacuum. And I definitely relate to the Alexa or other like just AI based things, like not knowing things about me. Like I think about like social media algorithms and the amount of times that like I will just like type in like even like I watch a lot of food videos and I'm picky towards I don't eat seafood. So I try to like just like scream into my phone sometimes like I don't eat seafood and like try to see if that's what's gonna work. But I don't know, just an attempt at relatability and lighthearted there. But I digress.
Well, 100%. Like Dan kind of gets at this in the article too, but I think that's such a good point to bring up, Jasmine. Is like, is this Google Glass? Like, is this just like we wanted the smart glasses, so we got them, but also it's killing the world? Or like, is it? And I guess like this is the question, Dan. So I'm not throwing the world's biggest AI question to you because I know it's still being answered, but I think it is like, has the can it exist question outpaced the should it exist question? Because this is one of the first technologies I can think of like, I am sure this existed in a sci-fi book before someone started developing it. And so it's interesting that what Jasmine brings up of like, yeah, did we just see if we could? And now we're here. It's are and why are there robot waiters? I will go back. I don't know if I've ever been in a restaurant and been like, I wish my waiter made less eye contact and,
Well,
like came
Jake,
around less often. Yeah.
to be fair, I don't know that a robot waiter would spill barbecue ribs.
That is a really good counter. That's a very good point for the robot waiter. That is true. Dan, any last points kind of on this? Because I want to, I don't almost want to try and seem like we're solving this today because I'm sure we'll talk about AI even on this show a million times. But any other thoughts from what's been brought up so far, Dan?
I agree with the regulation point, especially for Jasmine. I think that's the part we're missing in the conversation. I think the thought that it could exist, isn't that cool, probably was how it started. The biggest ChatGPT was cooking up before COVID. It was a small time, but OpenAI, it was a small time, but a product that could be used in kind of secret as they were developing it prior to that. And then it blew up, I think around 2019 in smaller circles. And at the time, their idea was how cool it was to be able to chat with a thing that could solve the Turing test, which is that test that says whether or not a chat thing that you were discussing with, you could tell if it was a human or a robot. And there had been some in the past that were cleverly designed old school chatbots where it had a dictionary to look through and then they would reply. This is the first one that, this is what worries me the most. It was the first one that the designers didn't really understand how it was doing its job, and they didn't have to tell it exactly how to pull the test off. Just filled it full of knowledge, and based on its architecture, it's like, I can sound convincing. And they're like, I don't know why this works. And that's currently how all the LLMs are working. We don't really know how it works. We know you put stuff in, a lot of stuff, and then somehow it turns out a thing that looks vaguely like what you're looking for. And that's what makes some of their progress sort of slow in the terms of what they would prefer, fast for us on our end, because we don't see the work that they're putting in. But they didn't start with what could this do and what do we need to avoid, even though in all the science fiction novels that they're getting inspiration from, they typically end with a lesson of, well, we should not do that or what we should do to make sure that works. And they're just kind of ignoring that. So that's what I want to see more regulation. And if you watch the news, sometimes you'll see the company say, we invite more regulation, as long as you regulate my competitor and not me. So they leave that part out confidently.
Yeah, that it's such a good point. It also reminds me of what Jasmine said too, right? Of like nothing is more inspirational than the first 10 minutes of a Black Mirror episode. It's like you've never clearly seen the rest of a Black Mirror episode. So it is fascinating to me that it has seemed to start with that. Even the Turing test point of like, did we make something just that it could be the test that we itself invented? Almost in fear of this sci-fi outcome, like the Turing test. I don't know if we should be celebrating something passing the Turing test. It's all very interesting, and I encourage people to read Dan's article. It's very, very not just insightful, but to me was eye-opening of like thinking of AI as a historical piece. I think for higher ed is very useful because I think you understanding that this has been coming and is not just like a fad is important, I think, as we think of how maybe it's going to impact our work. I think it was such a good combo. I'm gonna leave our other topic of news and headlines for a different episode. I think we'll jump in to our next segment, which we are tentatively calling Behind Closed Doors, a reference to, I assume, everyone's favorite part of RA staff training. I think somewhat universal. It's a scenario practice for higher ed professionals. One of those things that I have no idea where it started and somehow we all use. So I will look into that for a different podcast perhaps. But for today, what the segment is a storytelling segment. I'm going to have a topic that we talk about on at least this show. Maybe it'll come back if we like it enough. Where I gave our folks today a topic. That topic being anything concerning student interactions in general, but specifically a lot of stuff concerning end of the year, checkout related pieces, different things. Some are a little more general, but kind of get at the same tone of like when we stumble upon something. And the game part for today is our wonderful panel. We'll be reacting to it. This is kind of a way for us to talk about interacting with students and share stories, and especially now as we're all, I think all of us are probably about a month out from the end of years and thinking about that piece, which is both a wonderful and wildly chaotic time, I'm sure, for everybody. So we'll talk about those stories. They will have to not only talk about them, but guess who submitted the story from this group, or in theme with today's feature, I had an AI bot make it up just to, really tie into the theme and make myself more hypocritical. So that said, I will read out the first story here as we kind of get into things. I was thinking about which one I want to start with. I think I'll start with this one, which is person who submitted this said, we did a checkout of a staff member's room when we saw strange objects in the bathtub that came with their suite style room. They were big, probably just bigger than softball size, and there were about 5 of these objects. When we looked closer, we were completely flabbergasted. It's a big word, as they were giant eggs, 5 large eggs. And when we asked the staff member what was going on, they confirmed they were emu eggs, which they were hoping to hatch right as they were leaving for the summer. They were very proud to have found a loophole in our housing handbook, as of course emus were not allowed, but there was no policy about eggs of any kind. Years later, those emus still live with them on their family's ranch. So that is our first story today.
Oh, Jacob, you ended up on mute there.
No. Wow. How much did you hear?
We got to the end of the story.
Great. Okay. Awesome. Initial reactions.
My immediate thought is that's out there. I can only imagine if the emus had actually like hatched while in the academic year and what that would have looked like. My initial reaction though is that seems the large words and bringing in emus tells me I think this is your AI chatbot, Jake. But I will
Yeah,
I'll defer to my colleagues.
I also thought that one because where did they get emu eggs? And two, my my aunt is the CEO of the Buffalo Zoo, and she's been a zookeeper my whole life, and I've gotten to see like the behind the scenes. And I know that pretty much for any egg, they have to be incubated, and I don't know that a bathtub is the warmest. I mean, unless they had a
Yeah.
heat lamp over the bathtub, which
Little
they
sous
might
vide
have, and
in
they left
there.
that out. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I think this may be AI.
My immediate thought was, at first, plausible. And I don't know, it's because of so much weird stuff that I've seen. But I'm like, I could totally see that happening, but the logistics seem challenging to me. Part of it was, as we mentioned, the egg incubating, but I've also had students who own family farms or in those courses where they could probably jerry-rig a thing. Doesn't mean that it would be successful and the emus would hatch, but they would certainly think it's enough. So I am curious to hear more.
Wow. What would your official guess be, Dan? Would you guess AI at this point, or would you guess someone in the group?
I'm gonna guess AI, also in the Midwest. I think emus would be hard to get.
Yeah.
Well, I am happy to say on this first one that you all were stumped. This is incorrect. I did this. This is a thing that happened to me in Kansas.
Wait.
Yeah, this
Nuh-uh.
is real. This is a real story from when I worked at a university in Kansas. This is quite real. I will say, which is super fair. I did leave out some pieces of what the bathtub looked like, so you're all over it. They had jerry-rigged an incubator set up. The bathtub was full of, I believe, like straw in different pieces. So like it was not just an empty bathtub. They had it set up to incubate these eggs. And yeah, this was a staff member who was incubating and now has hatched, I believe at the time, 5 emus that live on a ranch somewhere in the Nebraska, Kansas area. So
Did
feel
they not
free.
shower? What?
Oh, so many questions. First off, I was waiting for this one. Why is there a bathtub? I don't know. I don't know why these rooms have bathtubs, but they do. So they never use the bathtub feature of the suite. They just, they showered either in the communal spaces or there was a separate shower feature. So correct, they never use their bathtub.
Can I, what, like, why did their family decide, or like them, like, why is this the best spot for them?
Yes, great question. I somewhat hinted at this in there. Which I wondered because I think Dan kind of stumbled upon it, which I thought was the most plausible piece because students just do this sometimes. The should we do this much like AI? I don't think was part of the equation. They found a loophole in the housing handbook, and that's what this was about. They were like, they had initially stumbled upon. They were looking at the animal policy. And they were like, what kind of animals are allowed in the halls? And they realized that there was nothing about eggs of any kind. So they had started thinking about chickens. And then one of the insightful students was like, well, if there's no limitations, we could hatch anything. So then the question I cannot answer for you today, to Jasmine's point, is how did they get these emu eggs? I didn't ask because I really didn't want to know. But they procured the emu eggs somehow, and then the question became, could they hatch them in their hall? And they got pretty darn close. The year ended, but they hatched, I think, a day after they left the university as they got back home. So yeah, that is true. The first one, we did have a staff member who did raise a family of emus in their bathtub.
You really queued that up well with
Thank
the flabbergasted big word. Like,
yes.
yeah, that was good.
Boom. Nice. Okay. I'm trying over here. First time hosting. Okay. Well, that's
I
the
have a
first
question
one.
for you.
Please, Jasmine.
Is there a policy about eggs now at that university?
I think there's a policy about like I think they've broadened their what you can use the bathtubs for policy. I think
Well,
that's where the direction went. Yeah.
rules and policies, they're best practice, but they're usually there for a reason. And I cannot imagine being the reason that a housing policy says no hatching emus or any other egged animal in a bathtub.
I do. I should do some follow up and see if this institution has since passed that. But I don't know. This was also during a period where it's like we were running into that a lot with students of like how far can the loopholes in this handbook go? I don't know why that particular group, like we had a different group of students who there were regulations about like you can only like dress code, like it was like, well, you have to have shirts on and certain dress code pieces unless you're at our athletic places on campus. So they tried to make the lounge of their floor a gym. They like bought bench sets and different pieces and like tried to claim it was a gym. So therefore it was just an excuse so they could wear cutoffs. But it was like, why are we going through? So I think the loophole piece was a big motivator for them in that particular time, you know? Pre-COVID was a wild world. People were really doing what they could out here, you know? So that's the first one. I'm glad that went well. That I will say it was my most outlandish story. So I think we come more grounded from there. I'm gonna go to this one next. This next story, as it was submitted, is a list instead of items found during closing, which I think is a very interesting topic that we could talk about as the story goes. That, as the person who submitted it wrote, got progressively more chaotic as the list goes on. Lots of candles, a sweatshirt of that person's favorite basketball team, a hair dryer that was then given to this person's mother, a futon, a full Taekwondo uniform, a tapestry of a shirtless Gibby from iCarly, another tapestry just saying "Be nice to Daddy" in a room that belonged to two women, and a retro-style mini fridge, and a large amount of marijuana, along with a weapon and two magazines. That, in fact, did get more chaotic as it went. So, is this list of items found AI generated, or do we believe this was submitted by someone here today?
I think I believe that, but I
Yeah.
did this person even attempt to move out? I mean, that's a lot of stuff.
It might be
That's
from
a
separate
lot.
places. It might be from, multiple rooms too. Yes.
Oh, I thought this was all from one room.
It could
I
be.
was
It could
like,
be, but I think it might be multiple places. Yeah.
well, okay, because I was like, why does this student have two tapestries and a gun? I don't quite understand.
Our
That
students are
doesn't feel like the
enigmas.
energy matches.
Yeah, and
Because
Gibby.
they're an artist and a scholar. Wow, just amazing.
And a martial artist.
An entrepreneur.
And I think I'm not sure that I think I can see both lenses of this is one room and this is two. If it's one room, AI. That's my take. Otherwise, I don't know. Dan, you were pretty stoic throughout that. I'm wondering here.
Wow. Austin's playing the game. There we go. This is someone here submitted this could be. So I like that. I will say the whole thing about this submission is and we'll talk about it after. I mean, partway through that list, I'm like, check, check. I've seen those as like a lot. I think I can imagine all of these. But it is funny to imagine one person being the enigma who owns all of these things. And I do like thinking of like, why did you leave things behind? So much marijuana is funny to me. Just a lot of weed. So that said, people's official guesses. We'll go in a different order this time. Austin, I'm going to have you go first. Do you want to guess someone in the group, or do you think this was AI generated?
Dan, I gotta go with you. I'm sorry. I hope I'm wrong.
Yes. Dan, what are you thinking?
I think it is real. I mean,
Okay.
I think it's real. I'm not sure who, so I'm just gonna check out probably a reverse accusation and just say that it's awesome, just because, just to protect myself in case it was not me.
Yeah,
see.
ye
How dare
old
you?
whoever smelt it dealt it. Yeah,
I suppose so.
exactly. Jasmine, what are you thinking?
Ugh. Now I don't know with their accusations against one another. I
You
feel
gonna
like
accuse
Dan was
yourself?
pretty stoic. Dan was pretty stoic and has quite an extensive resume, so I feel like
Yes.
he will have seen some wild stuff. But does Dan know iCarly and therefore Gibby? That's my question. So if Dan knows those things, then I will say Dan.
Wow. I will now reveal that this is a person in the group. And this was, Dan, you were all over it. Austin was trying to throw shade. Austin, this is your submitted story here. So pretty darn good job. So Dan, good, correct guess by you. And Austin, very nice work. Want to tell us more about these items?
I just want to
Yes,
say,
these
Austin, you tricked me. You absolutely got me.
Yeah, that's good.
successfully. Yes, these were all different instances from different years at different points in the year. What I will say, the clickbaity part of this is the marijuana and the gun, and I think that needs the explanation. I was at an institution that did a pretty extensive winter closing. And during winter closing, somebody didn't get the memo that she needed to move out. Um, and we were doing our room checks, and there was a pretty strong scent of marijuana. We go in, and we end up having to call university police. They show up and doing the whole, like, is there anything else I'm gonna find? And turns out that her boyfriend had been present, and he goes, I do have a backpack in there. You're gonna find it. I do have a good amount of marijuana in there. There's like 2 very large bags. And I have a gun. And
Wow.
it was just kind of the immediate, like, um, I'm sitting there with the RA as well,
Yeah.
as the professional staff member. I'm like, get out, like you're done. Like
Yeah. Take a
IR
break.
is on me. Like you are go find a peer, go get yourself packed up. You're not doing this anymore. And ended up being the thing that was scary for me was we were supposed to end around like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I had a flight leaving at 6, and this was definitely like pushing it to where like I hadn't packed, wasn't ready to go. So yeah, that was really like maybe one of my like least favorite things too, because of the repercussions of it. But it is one of the like I can't. It's when you play like rock paper scissors
Yes.
and somebody's like, okay, like haha, like instead I have a gun. It's like, yeah, no, I have like the gun is I win the craziest thing found in closing.
That is well, and it's a good example of like I think sometimes if folks happen to stumble upon this podcast, you don't work in higher ed. I think it's an interesting thing of like truly they could have anything in the room.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very good, Austin. All right, we are going to go to our third one here. I think I will do this one, which is starts like this. Our 17-story high-rise was a doozy during rounds. Shaped like the letter Y, there was no efficient way to route through the floors without doubling back constantly. This led to occasional disorientation, making one vulnerable to surprises. On one of the higher floors, a post-Halloween guest appeared in the laundry room. While on rounds, RAs reported seeing the silhouette of a tall figure in the back of the dark room, the faint street lights from far, far below barely illuminating the outline through the windows. Every time the RAs would jump, sometimes asked a stranger what they were doing and turn on the lights. It was always a mannequin. No one knew who owned it, nor who was moving it between floor laundry rooms. As November passed, eventually the mannequin disappears. That is until closing day. The laundry rooms were filled to the brim with cardboard and trash, to the point that you could not wade into the room without being knee deep. I received a call to assist with a student in possible distress, buried beneath trash and unresponsive. Upon arriving, I recognized the outstretched hand reaching from below the mound. I knew our friend the mannequin was back for one last prank. Pranks are my least favorite part of the job. I will just say, as I was reading this, that was my initial reaction, but very spooky. I would jump every time at this. So, people's initial reaction to mannequin in the trash room.
It's at least like a clever prank. Like it's beyond the just like
Thoughtful.
haha wet toilet paper. Like
Yeah, putting
this is
craft
actually like
singles all over the building. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, that's a good one. It's like pretty well coordinated. I am gonna go that this is real.
Okay.
Somebody amongst us. Not sure who yet, but um
You don't think
um
AI would use the word doozy?
like
I thought AI would
maybe
use the word doozy.
I I was kind of like going in the direction of AI to begin the story, with the setup, the
Mhm.
like very specific, like 17 floor high rise, post Halloween, and then like the progression here. But I do think that I think this is human.
Okay, we'll save guesses for now. Jasmine, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that unless the university is in a major city and like major like Chicago, there is no way that a residence hall has 17 floors unless the whole university is one building.
Okay, okay.
So I'm gonna say AI, and if I'm wrong, I will think about it for the rest of the day, but I'll be okay.
All right. Dan, what's your reactions?
The illumination from whatever the lights something street, too much. So I think it's probably going to be an AI. It just seemed like an embellishment that probably wasn't important.
I like that logic. So we have two AI guesses. Austin, I return to you. If you're still thinking it's someone in the group, I would like your guess.
I think it's someone in the group, and I'm going Jasmine.
All right. I can report that no one was correct on this one because it was someone in the group. That person, Dan. Dan did get him.
Oh,
So nice job, Dan. Your writing style, very, very compelling for this activity. Why don't you talk us through this one?
So this was at University of Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. They have three high rises that are 17. This was in May Smith Hall, which has as many students in it as almost my entire campus.
Yes.
And there's 32 RAs, two professional staff members, and two grads that monitor that entire building. Huge, huge. So it is in the shape of the Y. And when I would do rounds, it was confusing, and the three spokes of the Y kind of look exactly the same. Every floor looks exactly the same. It's a big old mess. But this mannequin who I think it started with both arms. It's just a nude mannequin that you would dress up to put clues on.
Yeah, yeah.
We had a fabric design major, so people would do fashion, that kind of stuff. So it just must have appeared from someone's course. Either they stole it or they bought it for courses or something. And so yeah, it appeared after Halloween. Pretty funny for a long time. And then when it disappeared, people were sad to see it go. Nobody knew who was moving it, but it was like we kind of got used to the mannequin. I'm not crazy on how it probably dulled the Ari's senses of there's a strange shadow. I guess I won't investigate it. It's probably the mannequin. So that wasn't great.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you only get jump scared so many times at some point you just let it be. But yeah, when it came back, like I couldn't believe how much trash were in these trash rooms. But there are a lot of students. And so you get into that trash room, it's like this is gonna be a nightmare for facilities and custodial. And it was that way every year. But to see like just this hand, this flesh hand coming out, and the student themselves, we had forgotten about the mannequin. So they did not like clock that could be what that was. But you go up there and you just see this hand. It has no fingers, right? It's just like a blob. I'm like, okay, yeah. I can tell from here that's
So
not a
clever.
real person. And it was missing one of its arms by that time at the end of the year. It probably was at too many college parties by that point.
Yeah, that is very fair. Jasmine, any follow-up questions on this story that you were that you were really, I think, hoping was not real?
I just want to know, and not that you would know this, but how does a mannequin wind up on your packing list for college?
I
How does
know.
that make the like comforter, laundry bag, mannequin? Like that's pretty wild to me.
There is something to be said for the residents who are like, this is my bit. I'm the mannequin guy. Is a
I mean,
funny but
I have to
wild choice.
appreciate a bit commitment.
That's fair. Any last comments or questions about this one? We'll do one more today. All righty. Last one today. I think we will do this one. During my time as a grad hall director, I worked with a resident who moved in the residence halls for the first time during their senior year. Previously, they had been a commuter student traveling to campus with their mother, who worked at the university. Their mother believed living on campus would help develop independence and adjust to community living. Early in the semester, concerns arose about this resident's behavior. They tended to be overly familiar with others, initiating conversations with people outside the showers and knocking on doors late at night because they were bored and wanted to socialize. One particularly notable concern was that they would walk through the hallways at night wearing only a t-shirt and underwear. When her RA addressed this, the resident responded, "Well, I'm in my pajamas." I'm sorry, that got me. That's funny. I met with the resident to clarify community expectations, including appropriate attire in shared spaces, and explained that norms in a residence hall differ from those at home. She appeared to understand during our conversation. However, later that week, I received an email from the mother who defended her daughter's behavior and accused me of repressing her womanhood. Given that the parent was also a university employee and I was both a staff member and a grad student, I escalated the situation to my supervisor for further communication. The situation seemed to resolve itself, and about a month later, I received a brief apology email from the parent with HR and my supervisor copied. Following this, the RA did not report any further concerns related to the resident's attire, but she was still a frequent flyer in my office for various other reasons. So we have t-shirts in the hallway, and then mother involvement. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings, but I obviously know who or what generated this, so I will let others start first. Initial reactions.
Completely plausible, and I hate that. That's just but
Yeah,
at the same time, it's like a best hits of the things that get us the most,
okay.
and that's something an AI could do. But like, I'm gonna pluck parent problem. I'm gonna pluck weird community expectations. Put it all together. Isn't that what they want? So I could go either way right now.
Austin, what do you think?
I'm going human. This feels very like Dan, you kind of got it. Like this is kind of all the things that we deal with. Um, I know plenty of people who've had the community
Yeah.
standards conversation around like, hey, wear a little bit more clothes when you're in your pajamas.
Yeah.
And I think
And the parent reaction piece is definitely something we deal with. Yeah.
yeah, and it's also pretty specific to like the higher ed structure of I'm a grad student, elevated this to my supervisor, HR, and things like that, and parent working at the same institution. So I'm going human. No AI detected yet.
Jasmine, what are you thinking?
Thinking just for math reasons, because
Yeah.
we've had
Or
at
am I
this
gaming the
point,
game?
I'm trying to game the game, and just like out of odds, like I think this has to be the AI one because, like Daniel said, it hits on all the points of expectation, but it's not so totally like ba-boom, it's but
Yeah.
it's we've heard a story from you, we've heard a story from Awesome, we've heard a story from Dan, so I'm going AI on this one.
Great deflection. My first guess is it's Jasmine.
Okay, dude, the nice response. You said that like we were on mock trial team, which I did enjoy, so that's very good. Dan, what's your guess?
I'm looking at some Jasmine math, which was sound, but also my first reaction was also Austin's reaction. I have to now decide between AI or Jasmine, and I think I'm gonna go with Jasmine because she was looking quite coy during it. Like, I'm thinking really hard. I need them to think that I'm thinking hard about this. So that's just my read, and if I'm wrong, I can't play poker.
Well, I will say for this one, and I may have set you up for failure here a little bit, Jasmine, just for the structure of the day, but it was Jasmine, so we have correct guesses. I know. Normally, if we play this again, which I think we will because it was fun, I'll give us more options, but it's our first time played, so the system was good. You laid out the math perfectly. I was like, this is either going to work exactly how Jasmine wants it or will lead us back. But I thought very, very well done. Dan has two correct guesses, so our winner for behind closed doors today is Dan. Jasmine, I have some questions here.
Yes.
How mad were we at this student? May I ask that question?
Yeah,
Was
it
this
was
like
pretty.
truly like they just didn't understand their boundaries, or was this like I can do whatever the hell I want because my ma works here?
It was a little bit of both. It was like, and the thing is, like this person, because they were a senior while I was in grad school, I'd interacted with them in class before too, so it was pretty awkward. And
Yeah.
they would kind of say pretty random stuff to people. Like one time she came up to me And verbatim, she said, "You look like a sunburn. Not you look
Oh,
sunburned.
Jesus.
You look like a sunburn." So she was someone that I didn't quite understand. And I don't know if it was just she had never really I mean, just judging by her mom's reaction, I don't think she had. I think there was a little bit of free love parenting going on, or yeah, I don't know, but it was I was surprised to be told that I was repressing her womanhood because contextually this was a female safe space dorm. It was all female
Oh my God.
identifying and I was in charge and all of the RAs were female. So it
Yeah.
was like I don't know that I am repressing her womanhood, but that's a very and I'm very sad that I couldn't throw you off my trail because I tried to throw in some good reactions there, but
I thought you did a
um
wonderful job. Yes.
thanks. I gave up acting for a reason. A good one, I guess.
Dan, Austin, any other questions or follow-ups to this story?
No, because I know that like this is just what our
Exactly.
students do.
Yeah.
The a whole other story is I actually knew an RA who got in trouble for like the same stuff and had to have that conversation with the supervisor. So just not nothing about this is surprising to me.
I think Jake didn't do it justice because he didn't read the title of the story,
I was
and I
just gonna
think
say, Jasmine, go ahead. It's the funniest part. I have been saving that. Go ahead.
the title of the story and how I tell others about it is Pooh Bear Resident is what I have titled it. Because the t-shirt and the underwear, she was Pooh Bear in it, it was just yeah.
when when I read it, because I read it as we start the show, it made me laugh out loud. I was muted. It was very, very funny. I didn't want to read it to start because not everyone gave titles, so it's like that might be a giveaway. But Pooh Bear Resident, very, very funny. Dan also titled his mannequin story "Hello Again, Friend," which was the right amount creepy and funny. So the titles were a
That's
nice
a Black
touch.
Mirror episode. That is a
I'll,
Black Mirror episode title.
That's
I'll make
exactly
sure
right.
to add titles for all submissions moving forward.
Exactly. Well, and speaking of other content, we are going to start wrapping up here today. I think we will end on this note for most occurrences, which is speaking of, we've talked about Black Mirror and other media a lot today. Recommendations, things that we're enjoying outside of our work. Self-care is an important thing. I think we try and hit in the field, and having a life outside of housing can be hard. So we're going to, support each other in this moment. Um, I can start. I have two. I have one that is, I think, like people in the field will like because it's somewhat related, though I do think it's very funny. I don't know if other people are watching the new show on HBO, Rooster, but it is starring Steve Carell and it is by the same people who created Ted Lasso. So yes, and Scrubs, which I also love. So yeah, if you're a fan, Jamie Tart from Ted Lasso is one of the main characters in the show as well. So very funny and is about someone who's an author who becomes a professor at it seems like a fake school, but an Ivy League university. So all of the content is about college life and working in college. So very, very good. And I didn't really hear a lot about the show when we stumbled upon it. So that has been our fun watch. I'm a huge baseball fan, so my actual detached from everything reaction. There's a 20-minute mini documentary on Netflix called The Turnaround that is about baseball player Trey Turner, who received he's a player for the Phillies. It will in my opinion make you cry. It is so good, but non-baseball fans could love it. It's very short. He received a lot of public backlash because he signed a very large contract and started playing terribly for the Phillies a couple years ago until a fan started an online effort to get a standing ovation going at like baseball games for him. And he was so moved by it that it did help relieve like the mental stress he was under, and he massively improved. So it's very, very cool. And the guy who started it has his own mental health battles that he related to with Trey and different pieces. So I think it's very cool. I'm also very interested always in sports, but like it's the most telling example I've seen of like an athlete literally psyching themselves out of performance and then like being supported back into it. So very, very good. My partner, who's not as huge in the sports as I am, but still into it. It like we'll watch it like probably once every couple months. It's very good. So that is my recommendation today. Had to be something sports tangential. Who would like to go next? Something they'd like to recommend or a self-care piece they've been doing lately? Dan? Thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah, I'm playing a video game right now on my computer called Starfield. I had
Okay.
bought it maybe a year or two ago, but it released some new content this week, and so I have not been sleeping enough to find time to play it. You can build a character if you're familiar with the Skyrim video game from the past where you fight dragons with your sword. This is the space version. You just fly your
Oh, I love
spaceship.
that.
In the new playthrough, the character I've created, I do not use guns. In the gun-toting, laser, robot stuff, I just punch things with my fist. And let me tell you, it's not easy to be a space pirate when you just punch people in the face, but it is making it more interesting. I am trying to find ways to still play this game. I like doing this. I like to push a game where its mechanics to the limit and see if it was meant to do this. And the game is resisting, but it is very fun.
Awesome. I love video game recommendations, so thank you very much, Dan. I'm gonna have to look into that. Jasmine, what are you thinking?
Um, Probably not terribly exciting, but I've been in my nostalgic era lately where I don't know if anyone remembers playing Spore. It was like a video game. Like it came out in 2008 and it was like you got to create a new being from like
Yeah.
cellular life underwater to a big. I found that it was like on sale for $8 and I bought it for my boyfriend's gaming computer without asking him. It was awesome. And that's been fun. And then just the 20th anniversary of Hannah Montana came around and I've been rewatching Hannah Montana. I don't know that I recommend it because it's not as good as it was when I was 10, but it's a good, nostalgia shot, to inject in the very tumultuous month that is April in residence life. So, yeah, I would just say embracing the things you loved in your youth is probably what I would recommend.
I love that. Thank you, Jasmine. That's so fun. Austin, what do you got to close this out?
Very nice. I also got to endorse Starfield. That's a great game, Dan. Thank you for bringing that up. I last night, my partner, 2023 UMR-ACUHO conference case study winner, took me. Sorry, that's flexing my partner there, but
So funny.
took me
Yeah.
on a date to see the Mario movie, and it's so good. Every time that there's like a kids video game movie come out, like I love going to see that. The Mario movie was what I did for my birthday 3 years ago, so getting to go see that was just nice. Like going out, little date night was fun. Go back to the movies if you haven't been back in a while.
That's awesome.
I've been really enjoying that. And then just in my personal life, I have, well, that's also personal, but I have a flag football league starting up. We've
Yes.
got our games will start next Saturday, and I'm just really excited for that. I got to meet my team, and I'm really excited to get connected with them and, just build community and be together. It is an affinity space league, so we're just really excited to be all together and make some friends and throw some pigskin.
It's so fun. Just in time for the Olympics.
That's right. That is right. Yeah, I will have to hone my craft so I can hopefully snap the ball to Tom Brady a couple times.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I would like to thank everyone who joined us today listening, and especially my friends who have joined in doing this today. It's our first one, so had a good time. Thank you, everybody. I will end with noting that I know for a fact that Austin's partner defeated me in that case study competition. So thank you for bringing that up. And
Sorry,
the
didn't know
burn
that.
was effective. No, it was good. I'm sure they earned it. I'm sure they did very well, but
Brain is huge.
it's very funny. Yeah, it was a big win, dude. So thank you everyone for listening. We'll catch you next time. Until then, take care of yourselves. All right, bye. And we're stopped. Took me